judging all of these off the bat, I feel like I'm probably gonna like emerald green the most. It seems the less blue based. I could completely be wrong. Looks a bit funky actually. Obviously my hair is blue based, that's not going to help. My hair is blue stained, so that is down to using mostly blue based greens because they all seem to be. Ooh, this is like a foresty green. But I say that every time, but does it stay that colour? Absolutely not. I'm going to do the kitchen towel test to see what colour is underneath it. This actually seems like it may be yellow based. Ooh, this is hopeful. So let's go. Crazy colour, emerald green. I'm coming for you. We are ready. Let the dye commence. I'm gonna get you a nice little juicy close up of the first application. Ooh, yes, this is like bogey green. It does look quite pale, meaning it's not like a deep green that I was expecting. Yeah, it's less foresty than I was anticipating, and instead it does seem yellow base, and it does seem quite lime once it's actually on my head, like in comparison to how it looked in the tub that I poured it into. Like, look how light that's going in comparison to what's in here. There's actually quite a significant difference there. As per usual with Crazy Colour, application is perfectly fine. In fact, this is so pale that I don't even know if this is going to cover up the blue, and if it doesn't, I'm mortified because I'm supposed to be heading straight out to like a weekend getaway straight after doing my hair, so I can't stay back and fix it. I'm going to get some gloves and try and put some on this blue and see what happens. Okay, I think it's covering nicely. It's maybe just a little bit darker. God, I'm running out really quick though. Okay, I'm gonna put the rest of this on and I'll be back when it's fully green. God, how do I turn this off without ruining my camera? Hair dye is on. Initial reactions is excitement. This is definitely yellow based. I feel very confident in that. Though this will eventually still fade to blue because my hair is blue stained, unfortunately, underneath this. I'm like 90% sure it's yellow based. I don't know whether I'm ever gonna actually know if it is because it's going to fade to blue regardless. But I reckon because it's so yellow based, it's probably going to last a lot longer as proper green than my last other attempts at different shades, because other shades that I've used fades to a blue in like 2 washes, and I think this is going to actually fade quite nicely to a yellow green with a hint of blue because of my stain. For longer, I'm going to have green hair for longer, I think, of this shade, so I'm feeling very quietly confident about this colour. I really like the shade. If I get you to the window, the shade that it is, it's lovely. I'm excited and I can't wait to wash this off. Here goes, because I've washed my hair recently, literally this morning. I'm only gonna rinse this off. Ew, I need to turn the hot water off as well. So I've included footage of me actually being out and about because I felt like it's more accurate if you see it in different shades of light and stuff. I actually really liked how this looked, and I think this is the closest I ever got my green hair, because my hair's not green anymore. This is a very old video, but I never really got my hair to a better shade than this. So I think Crazy Colour wins in terms of shade for sure. I will say that the consistency of Crazy Colour is quite runny, which isn't always good for like dripping in places that you don't want it to, like your t-shirt or up the walls, but it does actually make it a lot easier to apply. You'll see that I later find out further on in this video that there's actually more contents in the Crazy Colour bottles than there are in the Directions. So that's something to consider if you've got long hair when you're using Crazy Colour or Directions as well. You might be able to tell from my roots that it's been quite a while since I last dyed my hair green, and what I will say as a conclusion of that particular shade and brand is the shade was probably the closest I've ever got it to how I love green hair. It was such a dark, rich, like forest green. It was so like, it felt very like deep, like it felt like it was going to stay in for a long time because of how dark the color was. But 3 washes from that video you watched and I would probably say it got to pretty much this, just like a darker form of this. This is very light now because I've washed it probably about 12 times since that green, but the color was lovely. It did fade very quickly, and the Crazy Colour brand does not seem to be as conditioning as Manic Panic and Directions. Particularly Manic Panic is super conditioning. It makes your hair feel very like, oh, it feels like you've had a hair mask on. Crazy Colour, not so much. So quite low on the conditioning scale, but really high on the shade. They did that very, very well, but it could always be down to me and the undertone color I've decided to use underneath it. So if you've got very blonde hair, you might be able to get it to stick around for longer. That being said, I was going to bleach my hair blonde on this side before going into any different green bottles for this experiment. However, I figured to make it a fair test, I would keep the undertone the same. I feel like it might be a bit silly to do that if I'm just going to put in hair dyes that basically have blue underneath them somewhere. There's tones of blue in green, so I was like, would it make sense to bleach blue out and then basically put it back in? My poor little hair will probably yell at me for a long time for that, so I figured not. I'm gonna stick to this. And today we're going to try the next experiment, which is Directions semi-permanent apple green. Oh, doesn't that sound lovely? And I'm a bit worried about this because it does look very, very dark, but I do like a dark green, and it looks more, to be fair, it does look foresty green. It smells like kids paint, so that's a bit worrying, but I've used Directions plenty of times before, just not this shade, so I'm very excited about this one. Obviously the Crazy Colour bottle did manage to cover half of my head, but I remember getting a bit worried about whether there's going to be enough left for half of my head. So it does make me wonder whether one bottle is enough for a full head application, which is obviously what most people aim for. So that's the only other thing I would say about that. I was a bit like, but then again, I do have quite long hair, and with certain lengths of hair, you have got to sometimes buy 2 bottles. But I don't remember having this problem with Directions ever, so that's always a bonus, I guess. And whoa, let's get started. Here's the colour when it's kind of smeared. We shall begin. I've got quite a bit of root going on. I'm gonna be honest with you, I just could not, well, it was a mixture of like not being bothered to do my roots tonight, and secondly, I only like putting bleach to my hair when it feels really, I don't have gloves on, do I? I should probably put gloves on because I'm going to party tomorrow, so I don't want to look like crazy. I only like putting bleach like around my scalp, just on my hair in general, when it's really worth it. Even if for some people this would be awful, like, I get it, some people are embarrassed, but not me. I thought it would be best to hold on a little bit longer, so it also makes it worth my time a little bit more. I think the longer that you wait to do your root, like the more root you've got to cover. Like while I'm doing that whole root dyeing process, I may as well have more root to dye, if that makes any sense. This might be quite blue based. It does look quite teal, so that does make me wonder whether it's going to fade very, very quickly, even though the last one was a quick fade in my opinion. Once again, I would still consider Directions a bit more conditioning than Crazy Colour, but I'm remembering when I'm applying this that I would still consider it a little less conditioning than Manic Panic. I think there's something about Manic Panic that just get it right in terms of conditioning. It always makes me laugh because when I finish doing my half and half, the blonde side always feels a lot drier than the fresh colour I've just put on my head. This definitely looks a lot lighter than it did in the pot.
Even though it might be more teal, it is a very nice tealy green. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining when the greens fade to the teal colours that they do, because actually I really like very light pastel blue hair, and everyone always says to me that they like that colour on me. Oh my god, I've just had a complete disaster here. So I'm gonna come off quick. Hello. Around 4 to 5 hours have gone by now, and I've just been working with this on my head. I needed to say before washing this off, despite putting a lot of it on the wall, I have noticed that there is actually not a lot left, and a whole tub of this would not have covered my entire head if I were dyeing my entire head. So I'm not really sure if the Fact Crazy colour seemed to be lacking in volume was actually down to the fact that my hair's just simply growing, and I'm just kind of at a place now where I'm going to start needing, well, I'm definitely going to need 2 bottles of most hair dyes to cover this length of hair. I think the Manic Panic bottle tub is slightly bigger in volume. So this is 88 millilitres, and a quick Google search will tell me that Crazy Colour is 100 millilitres. So actually Crazy Colour is a little bit more than this. So there'll be more of that left over than this pot after dyeing half of my head. So that's good to know. And the Manic Panic is actually 118 millilitres. So Manic Panic wins in terms of the amount you're going to get in it. So that, I think, pushes it up a little bit in my books, I'm not going to lie. But anyway, and now is just the test of how long it, well, what it's going to look like when it's dry, of course, but how long it's going to stay in. Let's go. I am not going to wash the left side, I'm just going to wash the right side. And I'm not going to shampoo and conditioner because A, I used shampoo on this side of my head yesterday, deliberately, knowing I was going to dye my hair today. And the hair dye is conditioning, so it shouldn't need you to condition it. And this is freezing cold water also. I have grabbed some stills from my Instagram page of how the hair looked the next day. This is when it was styled and I was out. It was a little bit more dull than the other green. It was a nice green, it was just a bit more deeper. It gave a more kind of like foresty green than the more lime green at the beginning of this video did. But though I've always liked forest green a lot more as a colour, I felt that this faded a lot more to a blue quicker. Like it faded a bit sooner into a shade that I didn't like the forest green turned into a lighter green quite quickly, and then before I knew it, it was pretty much blue. So I felt like the blue undertone came through quite quickly with the Directions. I've always felt that Directions fades quite quickly anyway in comparison to Manic Panic, which is why I always use Manic Panic. I felt like comparing Directions to Crazy Colour in terms of how long it stayed on my head, it was fairly similar, though I think Directions just about won perhaps. Even though the tone of the Directions hair colour was like changing a lot, it took longer to fade entirely out of my hair, if that makes any sense. Both were fairly conditioning, but I think Directions wins a little bit more. I'm comparing 2 of my least favourite hair dye brands here. I use Manic Panic a lot more because I think Manic Panic's even more conditioning than Directions, as well as longer lasting. I also feel like Manic Panic has the shades a little bit better too than both of these were. Though I think overall Crazy Colour felt the best to apply. It just felt easier, and I like how it was sloppier. Depending on what your priorities are, I feel like Crazy Colour surprised me in winning at the best shade, because Directions I usually prefer their shades. Maybe it's just a green thing. You're going to find that having yellow hair is more supported by Directions, or having like blue hair is more supported by Crazy Colour. Like what stays consistent is the conditioning after effect, how much is in the bottle, and how long it lasts on your hair too. I've always found that Crazy Colour sort of just like melts off your hair a lot quicker than a lot of other brands that I've used. Even starting a journal and making note of how you felt each shade was and how long it lasted will be really good, because it is so easy to forget what shade you like, what brand you like with a different colour, but it's fun. So enjoy yourself. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time. If you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe to be notified every time I make a brand new video. I'm on social media such as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. If you want to book a tarot reading with me, you can do so by emailing me on my email address below in the video description or messaging me on Instagram or Facebook. Loads of love. Bye!